threatened and
Thank
to...
you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Senator Grassley.
You're welcome. I'll send you a bill.
Ms. Campbell, according to the AVVO, I don't know whether that's pronounced, I have a profile. It appears that you served as legal counsel to a group named Workers' Dignity. This group has taken a number of radical leftist positions. For example, Workers' Dignity has advocated for abolition of what they call oppressive systems like police and the military. Do you agree with this position? Do you support the abolition of police and military?
Senator, respectfully, I have never represented that organization, and I do not agree with that position.
Well, then I'm sorry that our research wasn't as accurate as it ought to be. I'll yield.
All right. Now, according to your AVO profile, you've been legal advisor to an organization called Workers' Dignity from 2013 to the present. Is that correct?
Senator, I have never represented Workers' Dignity. A long time ago, I was on a legal advisory board to help them.
So you have been a legal advisor. You have been a legal advisor to them.
How come you didn't tell me that?
I apologize, Senator. I have never represented Workers' Dignity. I was on an advisory board about 15 years ago to when they were starting.
Okay, and when did your work for Workers' Dignity end?
I'm sorry, can you
You talked about that it was a long time ago. When did it end? When did your work for them as a legal advisor end?
Senator, I would guess in about 2012 or 13.
All right. Now, according to your AVO profile, on June 12th, according to that profile, you authored an endorsement for an attorney named Raquel Lee Bellamy on June 12th. So, at the least, you should have been aware that your AVO profile listed that you were currently a legal advisor to Workers' Dignity. Were you aware of this?
I was not, Senator.
You were not aware of the fact, even though June 12th. Now, June 12th, that's just a week ago yesterday. Tell me what I'm missing here. Because you authored an endorsement for an attorney named Raquel Lee Bellamy on June 12th. So, were you not aware that your AVO resume listed that you were currently a legal advisor to Workers' Dignity?
Senator, I believe it's been more than a decade since I looked at my AVO profile, and so I was not aware that it said that.
More than a decade or more than a week? Which one?
I have not looked at it. Are you suggesting June 12th of this year?
Yes. Yes.
No, that is incorrect, Senator.
Okay, but you can't tell us when it ended. You haven't told us really when it began or when it ended. A minute ago, you didn't acknowledge to Mr. Grassley what was going on, so I'm a little confused. I'm about to be gavelled out. I'm out of time, but this raises some questions. It also raises some questions. Your largest political campaign donation went to someone who has made blatantly racist comments and really wildly inappropriate comments about almost every member of this committee, and I find that troubling.
Thanks. Can I, first of all, welcome. Glad you're here.
Judge Lopez, I'm going to quickly note there's a reason the Democrats have scheduled you on this panel, because you have a long pattern of sentencing criminal defendants to egregiously light sentences, including one child molester who molested a 4-year-old and 9-year-old, and you sentenced him to only 6 years in prison, including, as we heard before, one woman who was responsible for killing her 1-year-old son, who was coated in fentanyl. His pajamas were coated in fentanyl. His sheets were coated in fentanyl. You could have sentenced her to 30 years. You sentenced her to only 4 years. It's an egregious pattern, but the reason you're put on this panel is the Democrats know that most Republicans will not have time to question you about that terrible record because your colleague on this panel, her record is even worse. Ms. Campbell, I will say I have seen some astonishing nominees from this administration, but I have to admit your record takes the cake. A judge should not be a political activist. Your record demonstrates to me a long history of being a political activist, but not just an activist who affiliates with extreme and radical organizations. Now, when Senator Grassley asked you about the Workers' Dignity Organization, you gave, I think, deliberately misleading answer. You said you did not represent them, and that convinced Senator Grassley not to continue on that line of questioning. You have been a legal advisor to that organization since 2013. That is what you have publicly printed on your AVO biography. It is what has been described in the Tennessee Bar Association when you were nominated. It explicitly says she served as a legal advisor for local workers' rights nonprofit Workers' Dignity. Now, why is it you're distancing yourself from them? The reason is because they are utterly radical. If you look at this group that you've served as the legal advisor for over a decade, this is an openly Marxist organization. This is a communist organization. Now, those words are not said lightly. According to their own characterization of their views, this group says there's no election outcome that improves conditions for workers. The laws of this country have never worked for our people, and now that the system is crumbling, we will continue to stand in community and solidarity with each other. The only way we win in a world we deserve is by building a multiracial working class revolution that can push out white nationalism, violent state racism, and the capitalist class that is desperately clutching to hold control and profits as the people rise up. Why have you spent a decade as a legal advisor to an openly communist and Marxist organization? I don't think your microphone's on.
I apologize, Senator. If I could briefly clarify, more than a decade ago, probably for the course of 2 or 3 years, I served on an advisory board that helped this, at the time, was supposed to be a nonprofit workers' rights organization get set up and get started.
Did you know they were a communist organization?
Senator, at that time, they did not express these kinds of views. It was an organization.
So this is new. This wasn't the case then.
Yes, and I have not been affiliated with them in more than a decade.
You're aware that your current profile that you have up, your legal bio, says you are right now an advisor to them.
I apologize for any confusion about that.
So your testimony under oath, and that's all right, the facts will come out, but your testimony, I want to make it explicit. Your testimony under oath is that you have done absolutely nothing and had zero contact with them for how long?
I have not served on their advisory board for...
You've done absolutely nothing and had zero contact with them for how long? Please answer the question.
Many, many years. Senator.
How many?
I don't know, sitting here today. It's been many years.
Okay, if you look at other statements from this organization, because they are radicals. They are radicals. If you look also, this is the same group in 2020. They called for abolishing ICE, abolishing prisons and detention centers, and abolishing the police. Why did you volunteer for a communist organization that calls for abolishing ICE and abolishing the police?
Senator, I have never seen these comments before.
You didn't know who you were volunteering for?
I was not a volunteer for them at that time.
You were a legal advisor. Were you paid?
No, I was
Then
not.
you were a volunteer. If you volunteered to be a legal advisor, you were a volunteer. Why did you volunteer? Do you support abolishing ICE?
Senator, at this time, I had...
Do you support abolishing ICE?
I do not, Senator.
Well, it's amazing because a minute ago you also told Senator Graham that the Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Rights Coalition that has a manifesto calling for abolishing ICE, you said you had nothing to do with it, which is fairly astonishing because on page 3 of their manifesto, they thank you by name for what they say. We would like to thank the following individuals and organizations for their thoughtful feedback and input. This platform would not have been possible without their expertise. Are they lying?
Senator, I'm not familiar with that manifesto.
Are they lying? Did you provide any assistance? Did you give feedback and input, which is what they say on the cover page?
Senator, I didn't even know that existed, and so no, I did not provide input on it.
Eddie.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Campbell, you lied to Senator Grassley, didn't you?
No, Senator.
You told Senator Grassley that you've never represented workers' dignity, didn't you?
That is correct, Senator.
That's not true, is it?
Senator, I have never represented that organization.
Yes, ma'am. That's not true, is it?
Senator, it is true. I served for a period of 2 or 3 years, more than a decade ago, on an advisory board to help them set up as a nonprofit.
In fact, you were so supportive of workers' dignity that not only did you represent them, you didn't charge them a fee. Isn't that correct?
Senator, when I was on their advisory board more than a decade ago, I did volunteer my time.
Right. You know what this is? Do you recognize that picture?
No, Senator.
This is from Workers' Dignity's website. There you are, right here. It's got your name. Wow. Judge Lopez, you
has made such statements. And let me ask you, go back to the workers' dignity, that work that you've done. Do you agree with them on abolishing law enforcement, abolishing ICE?
Senator, I'm not familiar with those statements, but I can categorically say to you that I disagree with those positions.
So you would not abolish ICE. Okay. The Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Rights Coalition, and we have discussed this, and you're saying, I want you to say this for the record, so you are saying that they are lying when they say that you gave them advice and consent and help. Is that correct?
Senator, the manifesto that was referenced, I am not familiar with it.
So why would they think that they had depended on you for advice? And why would they note this? Did you ask them about it? Did you say, why are you referencing me and I had nothing to do with this? Did you talk to anyone?
Senator, until today, I did not know that my name was listed in one of their publications.
You had no idea about that. Well, do you agree with them? And I'm pulling this from a Fox 17 news report. TIRRC is calling on Metro Police to develop clear policies and refuse to help ICE carry out civil immigration enforcement in Davidson County. Do you agree with that statement?
Senator, I'm not familiar with that statement, and no, I don't agree with it.
You don't agree. Thank you.
I'm trying to understand your answers to this committee. Let's start with the workers' dignity question, because your truthfulness under oath is surely, I notice my friends across the way now are utterly uninterested in any organization you've been a part of. They're suddenly utterly uninterested in things you wrote in the past. They're utterly uninterested in who you give money to. That wasn't the case just a few years ago, but be that as it may, surely they're interested in your truthfulness. I have now counted, just as I've sat here today, 4 separate answers by you, all of them conflicting as to what exactly was your relationship with workers' dignity. So let's just get this nailed down. First of all, did you disclose your relationship with workers' dignity to this committee? Don't look at the chairman, look at me.
I'm not sure that I included that. I don't remember, Senator.
Oh, I think you do. The answer is no. You did not disclose it to this committee. Then you told Senator Grassley, I've never represented that group. Then you told Senator Lee, next, that you had indeed advised them. and that you'd advise them as a member of a legal advisory board. You said 10 years ago, right? Then you told Senator Cruz that, in fact, you told Senator Lee you'd advise them briefly. You told Senator Cruz, actually, you'd advise them for 3 years. Then you told Senator Durbin that it wasn't 10 years ago, it was 15 years ago. So what is it exactly? You didn't disclose your association with this radical group to the committee. You're currently listed now, your own bio lists you as a legal advisor to the Workers' Dignity Group from 2013 to the present. To the present. The Tennessee Bar Association cited your work with this group for your nomination. So what is the story? When did you start working for Workers' Dignity?
Senator, more than a decade ago, for 2 or 3 years, I served on a legal advisory committee or board.
So you gave them legal advice.
We were helping them set up as a nonprofit.
So you represented them. So you lied to Senator Grassley earlier when he explicitly asked you, did you do any legal work? And you said no.
Senator,
In fact, you served on a legal advisory board. That's your testimony now. Correct?
Senator, I served on this board.
On a legal advisory board, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So you lied to Senator Grassley here under oath. What else have you lied about? Workers' Dignity has condemned Israel's ethnic cleansing of Palestine. They have said that Israel is engaged in ethnic cleansing. Do you agree with that?
No, Senator.
How can I believe you? You just lied under oath a moment ago to Senator Grassley. You've lied to us up and down on this committee. I mean, this is a serious problem, Ms. Campbell. I have to say, I've never seen a witness, never, in 5 years in this committee, sit here and lie to us and change the story person to person. Why are you doing it? What is it? Why are you afraid to tell the truth about workers' dignity? Why have you lied to this committee? Why didn't you disclose it? Why did you lie to Senator Grassley? Why have you changed your story every time you're asked?
Senator, I have not lied to you today. I've tried to represent my participation with this group.
What you've done is you've misrepresented your participation with this group. You apologize to Senator Cruz for any confusion. You've created the confusion deliberately. Deliberately. Let's talk about some